The Culture Pop Podcast is brought to you by the law offices of Jacob M. Ronnie.
Accident or injury, call Jacob and Ronnie. Call Jacob.
Hey, it's Mase. If you or a friend or loved one is injured in an accident, the first person you should call is my friend Jacob. When I did this, Jacob was great. He helped me by talking through the next steps, which really put my mind at ease. When you're injured in an accident, you got to have an expert. That's why you call Jacob, just like I did. Call Jacob, 844-24-JACOB. That's 844-24-JACOB, or visit calljacob.com.
Call Jacob.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Culture Pop Podcast. I'm Steve Mason along with Sue Blue, Sue Kalinsky. Good morning, Sue. It is Friday, January 12th at about 10 a.m. What's up?
What's up? Still dry. Still dry.
Yeah?
Still dry.
Still dry. Good for you. So not a joint, not a gummy, not a drink. Wow. You've lasted 12 days. Congratulations.
And I was very tested. I went to a bar the other night because it was a friend's birthday party.
Right.
And I wasn't really tempted, but I was in a bar.
Club soda?
No club soda in this bar.
Get out of here.
It's a place called Joe Jost. If you've never heard of it, it's an iconic bar in Long Beach. It's been there forever.
Okay.
They're famous for their pickled eggs and weird sandwiches that I would never eat.
Pickle eggs are delicious, though. They're
actually
eggs.
good. I'd never had it before, but they're actually good.
Yeah, we'd always have pickled eggs after Easter because you'd have the Easter eggs and then you'd stick them in the beet juice afterwards and you pickle them up. That's delicious.
So, so no club soda. They don't have any juice. I was ready to order a cranberry with soda with a little lime.
Yep.
So I had a root beer.
A root beer. I like that. That.
On tap.
Wow. On tap is big.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been scuffling around with a cough all week long, and we were just talking about it. It's like there's a new thing. Every time I watch the news or listen to the news, there's a new thing that's going around, and there's supposed to be a cough that lasts for 30 days. And I'm like, is there a shot for that I can get to just clear it up or whatever? I'm so used to getting vaccines at this point. But so I'm going to sound a little bit. Do I sound okay?
You sound fine. I mean, you sound a little hoarse.
Yeah, I'm a little hoarse. We got a great guest coming up, Bryan Greenberg, who has written, directed, and starred in a brand new movie called Junction. We got that coming up. In the meantime, Sue, I thought, by the way, I wanted to mention, I have stopped smoking joints for this week because I have a cough.
Just using the bubbler?
Yes, no, because I have a cough. I stopped smoking for the week. I don't think it's necessarily going to last, but I'm also giving something up.
Okay. Is this a pissing contest in the giving up department?
Kind of. It is. So I thought today what we should do is the year is wrapped up. 2023 is wrapped up, and you and I see a ton of movies. And I think it's easy to do a top 10 because you have room for all the pictures that you like. 10 is a lot. So I thought, let's make it really tough, and let's do a top 5 movies of 2023. So I'm going to have you start. If I overlap, if we have the same one, I'll jump in and add to it. But otherwise, let's do your list first.
Just give you my straight list right now.
Well, tell me about the movies.
Okay. Anatomy of a Fall.
That is right at the top of my list. Written and directed by Justine Trier, starring Sandra Huller. And I just thought this was a fascinating movie to watch.
From start to finish, unbelievable dialogue. The acting was insane. And the court scenes, it was so odd the way they did the court scenes in France. And I don't know if that's the way they do it, but it's like when the defendant and then some of the witnesses were speaking.
Yes,
they kind of were talking to each other back and forth, and then the prosecution and the defense attorney would talk, and the judge really didn't interrupt. So it was kind of like a play in a way in the courtroom. It was really odd.
Yeah, their way of doing things in court is really I mean, I assume this is the way it is in France, but there are like 9 people wearing robes, and then there's somebody asking questions and somebody else, and the witnesses are talking to each other, and the defendant is talking to the I mean, I guess they have a very confusing court system there.
Well, and the defendant is speaking not when she was on the stand. Like, I guess she was kind of on the stand, but sitting in the court
gallery.
In the gallery. So it was, it was really unusual.
Yeah, yeah. And I thought, she is so good.
Oh, God.
She is so still as an actor, so still.
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't know if we should say this or not. I'll just say there is no clear resolution.
Right.
Which is one of the things that I love about it.
I love that too. And, you talk about acting. The kid was insanely great.
Oh, the kid was so good.
And the dog was even great.
Yeah, that dog did a nice job.
And you know what I found out? I don't know if I told you this. A friend of mine went to a screening and some of the cast was there. And they said the dog won the Palme d'Or. It was called the Palme Best Dog. It was
so at Cannes, there's an award for Best Dog.
Well, they said that he got it, which I thought was amazing.
Yeah.
But you know what the movie had shades of for me it felt like, especially during the flashback scenes with her husband, it was like Ingmar Bergman's Scenes from a Marriage.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. I also love the fact that there was no score. There was just the kid played piano and the husband was playing some loud music upstairs. But beyond that, there was no score. It was just what would be called ambient music, just music that was either the kid practicing the piano or that song. And I thought that made it even more still. Now, I hesitate to ask this question because are we giving it away? No, I don't think we are. Did she or didn't she?
I don't think she did.
I think she did.
You do?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I do. But it's totally open.
It's so open. It's so open.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really wonderful.
Anatomy of a Fall is available on Apple and on Prime. It's for rent. I think it's like $4.99. Completely worth it. I think it's going to be nominated for Best Picture. It's not going to be nominated for Best Foreign Language Film because the France submitted another film. They felt like Anatomy of a Fall was only 60% in French, so they wanted a fully French movie to represent the country at the Oscars. So Anatomy of a Fall, I think it's going to be nominated for Best Picture, though.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay, what's next?
Holdovers.
Okay. You go.
Sweet, just charming, cozy, unbelievable acting.
Yeah.
And I think I said this before when we had talked about it. There were scenes where the way it was shot on the campus reminded me of The Graduate. And even some of the music was reminiscent of Simon and Garfunkel, which was very, very cozy to me. Divine Joy Randolph, just phenomenal.
Yeah, she was great.
And the young actor, this was his first film, Dominic Sessa.
Dominic Sessa, yeah. And of course, Paul Giamatti, who is a national treasure, and it's an Alexander Payne movie, and they previously combined on what was it? The wine movie? What's that?
Sideways.
Sideways, so good. I am not drinking Merlot. Paul Giamatti should be nominated for Best Actor. I think he's got a shot to win.
I do too. And I saw a picture. I don't know I think it was maybe on Facebook or Instagram or somewhere where Paul Giamatti, after he won the Golden Globe, there's a picture of him sitting at a table. It looked like he was by himself at an In-N-Out burger.
In-N-Out burger. What better way to celebrate if you're an Angelino than hitting the In-N-Out? Yeah, I like the holdovers a lot. It's not in my top 5.
Okay.
What's next for you?
Past Lives.
Good.
Past Lives was really just this beautiful fly on the wall kind of film, you know? And I talked about this before. That opening scene was one of my favorite moments in a film in a long time. Just the three of them sitting at that bar and you hear that voiceover from some other patron in the restaurant trying to figure out what's the story with these 3 people?
And they never in a million years could have figured out the story. It is so complex. It's such a beautiful haunting movie. Greta Lee, I love. She was so good in it. And the actor, Tae Yoo, is excellent. And John Magaro, who we're hoping to get on the show, is fantastic.
Yeah.
It's written and directed by Celine Song. Again, I think this is a Best Picture nominee. It's my favorite movie of the year. I absolutely love it. I find it to be haunting. It's got a moment in it that reminds me a lot of Lost in Translation. Actually, the whole movie reminds me a bit of Lost in Translation. But that moment, and I don't want to spoil it, you know which one I'm talking about, Sue. I'm like, I've never seen that. I've never seen a scene like that in a movie. So Past Lives, that's another one that's available for rent on Apple and on Prime.
Saltburn.
Saltburn. I'm so glad you put that on the list.
And, you know the story. I started watching it the first time and it was just a mood thing. It was the time of the night. It was, just, I wasn't into it. And I didn't pick up from where I left off. I started it from the beginning again. Good. And as I'm watching it, I looked at Tom and I said, why did we turn this off in the first place? This is crazy.
Yeah.
It was so out there and uncomfortable. And I had no idea. I was completely taken for this ride. And it was just brilliant.
Yeah, great cast. Barry Keoghan is fantastic. Jacob Elordi is great. I saw him earlier in the Elvis movie Priscilla. He played Elvis. Rosamund Pike is fantastic, and Richard E. Grant is always so good. I think it's the most outrageous movie of the year.
Yeah.
There's stuff in there. There are 3 scenes in there that I've never, ever, ever seen in a movie, and I'm sure I will never, ever see him again.
Now, this is a really easy thing I'm going to say here. So, I mean, I don't want to give things away, but I'm just going to say in the dance scene, okay?
Yes, the dance scene.
You do see
male frontal nudity.
Full frontal nudity.
Yeah.
And I wonder if an actor doesn't have a substantial size penis.
Yeah.
Right? How alarming would it be if you were to shot that scene with an actor with a small dick?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an odd question, but a fair one. I wonder if that's not some sort of. Do you think that's a prothesis?
Oh, prosthetic?
Prosthetic, yeah.
I don't. I really don't know.
Because, like in Boogie Nights, that was a prosthetic on Mark Wahlberg at the very end of the movie.
Maybe it would have to be because, who else are you going to cast in that part? I mean, he was amazing. But what was that baseball play that
Take Me Out?
Take Me Out.
Yes.
They all stood there on stage.
Did you see it, by the way?
Yes, I did.
Oh.
And I thought, you could not have an actor. And I don't know if those would have been prosthetics because
I don't think so.
It wouldn't have been. But I was thinking, you probably couldn't hire an actor who had a small penis.
Yeah, those are, by the way, there was a leak of photos. You remember this from Take Me Out, and Jesse Williams is in that play. And so they're very serious about it. Put your cameras away, no pictures. Somebody got a picture. And I'm like, if I was Jesse Williams, I'd be like, yeah, let's push that picture out. I got nothing to be ashamed of. But shout out to Emerald Fennell, too, who was the writer-director on that. She previously did A Promising Young Woman, and she's going to be somebody to watch. But yes, Saltburn is on my top 5 also.
Okay. And my final one is Oppenheimer.
I don't know this Oppenheimer film you speak of. No, of course.
Barbenheimer?
Yeah.
It was a masterpiece, I thought. And even though I feel like I have to see it again because it was so dense, that I definitely missed things, and there was a lot going on, not only scientifically, just the story. There was a lot going on, but I thought it was really just brilliantly directed. The acting was amazing, and I'm hoping that Christopher Nolan is going to win a director award.
You know, I think he is finally going to win a directing award. It's written and directed by Christopher Nolan. I frankly don't want to live in a world where Christopher Nolan has not won an Academy Award. I mean, come on, he's Christopher Nolan. Cillian Murphy's fantastic as J. Robert Oppenheimer. Although, I'll say this. If it comes down to, and it will, Bradley Cooper, Paul Giamatti, Cillian Murphy for the Oscar, who would get your vote?
Paul Giamatti.
Bradley Cooper would get mine.
Oh, really?
I thought Bradley Cooper was unbelievable as Leonard Bernstein. Did you? Did you like the movie?
I thought the movie was a little tedious, to be honest with you. I thought the performances were really good. I thought that Carey Mulligan was insanely good.
Yeah, really good.
And if there was an award for best cigarette smoking in a film, it was. This is a lesson to every actor who doesn't know how to smoke to smoke. There was French inhaling. There was smoke coming out while they were talking. It was coming out of their mouth. It was coming out of their nose. It was what a smoker looks like.
Yeah, yeah. I will also say that the makeup in Maestro is unbelievably good. Like old age makeup we've seen, and you know, it's good, it's bad. It was impeccable in this movie because you watch the transformation of Bradley Cooper throughout the movie, and his age makeup as he gets older is so convincing and so realistic. I really did forget I was watching Bradley Cooper. I hope. And by the way, the conducting the full orchestra, which you really did. I mean, I thought that was a crazy powerful scene. So it's not in my top 5, but I really want Bradley Cooper to win Best Actor. Is that your 5?
That's my 5.
Okay, well, here's what's weird. So 4 of our 5 match.
That's a first.
So we each have Anatomy of a Fall, Past Lives, Saltburn, and Oppenheimer. That leaves me a number 5. And I'm going back to early in the year. This movie stuck with me. It's a really fun movie. It's a really entertaining movie. It's a really smart movie. Air. I loved Air. It's a story of how Michael Jordan got a shoe deal with Nike. It's directed by Ben Affleck. It's written by Alex Convery, who was on the show earlier this year. You got Matt Damon as Sonny Vaccaro and Ben Affleck as Phil Knight. Chris Messina is great as Jordan's agent, and Viola Davis is always great. She plays Jordan's mother. I thought one of the cool things about that movie is that it's a movie about Michael Jordan getting a shoe deal, but you never really, you see Michael, a character or an actor playing Michael Jordan, but at no point does he have a line. At no point is he a principal. It's told sort of around Michael Jordan, which is smart because frankly, we all know what Michael Jordan looks like. It would have been difficult to find somebody who looks like him. And if it didn't look like him, it was going to pull you right out of the movie. So I thought really smartly done like that. So I have Air on my list. So the one we have different, I have Air and you have
The Holdovers.
The Holdovers, yeah. Holdovers would be in my top 10. Some of the other movies I looked at, Maestro, Poor Things. Have you seen Poor Things yet?
I haven't seen it yet.
Emma Stone should win the Oscar for that.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
That's super inventive. Killers of the Flower Moon, which I did love. American Fiction. Have you seen that one yet?
I haven't. I haven't seen it, but I heard it's really, really good. Yeah.
It's such a smart movie and really, really funny. And Jeffrey Wright should be nominated for Best Actor. It's a great movie. And then Barbie. How do you know? We neither of us put Barbie in the top 5, but Barbie is in the top 10 for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we each recognize. Oh, I wanted to make one other thing about Oppenheimer. Great score by some guy named Ludwig Göransson. He won the Golden Globe the other night, but that score really makes the movie work. And by the way, the cast in Oppenheimer: Emily Blunt and Matt Damon and Florence Pugh and Casey Affleck and Rami Malek and Kenneth Branagh and Jason Clarke and Tony Goldwyn and Tom Conti as Albert Einstein and Robert Downey Jr. A great performance. He won the Golden Globe. He's definitely going to win the Oscar. Yeah, Oppenheimer I think is the consensus best movie of the year. I'd be surprised if it doesn't clean up at all these award shows that are coming up. All right. Oh, by the way, I went to Broadway. I never even mentioned the shows that I went to see on Broadway.
Oh, I think didn't you talk about that? I thought you did.
Did we talk about Kimberly Akimbo?
You talked about your trip to New York, so
I don't know if I mentioned the shows.
Oh, okay, maybe you didn't.
The one that stuck with me was a show called Kimberly Akimbo, and it's about a little girl who has a disease where she ages really fast. So she looks 60 even though she's in high school, and she continues to age. It's some sort of mythical terminal illness, and she is so good in this play. And the music is so original. It's a really original story. It was my favorite show I saw when I was there. I also saw Merrily We Roll Along, which stars Jonathan Groff, who's one of my favorites. And tell you what, Daniel Radcliffe is fantastic. That's going to win some Tonys. That's a Sondheim one that when it originally opened on Broadway, it closed after like 19 shows. And now it is a gigantic hit on Broadway and is playing for, 6 months. It's been playing for 6 months. And then the third one was, it's called & Juliet. It is a jukebox musical, which I didn't know when I got the tickets. It's good. It's good, but I wouldn't necessarily be my choice again. It's fun. I don't dislike it, but it just wasn't on par with the other two shows. And then, by the way, I'm going to see MJ the Musical tomorrow.
Oh, cool.
At the Pantages. It's nice. The guy that won the Tony for playing Michael Jackson. So
he's in it. He's in this. Oh, great.
Yeah, he can. Now, are you going to go see that? I know you've got subscriptions to different theaters in town.
How long is it going to be there for? Do you know?
I think it's got another 6 weeks.
Oh, okay. If it's going to be there another 6 weeks, maybe I'll go.
Yeah, I'll give you a review next week. Okay, so you know if it's worth it.
I love the Pantages. I love seeing shows there.
It's such a beautiful theater.
Yeah, it's nice and intimate. Not a bad seat.
And I just like looking at the ceiling.
Yeah, it's just
it's so beautifully preserved. It reminds me of a time when people used to put that time and attention into, the design and the beauty of a building. And it's a classic. The Pantages is a classic. All right, before we get to our guest here, Sue, I want to let people know if you're listening on Apple or watching on Apple or Spotify, you can subscribe to the show and leave us a 5-star rating and a review. If you're watching on YouTube, smash the like button. I was told you're supposed to say that. Smash the like button. And subscribe to the channel. Then scroll down and leave us a comment, a review, a snarky joke, whatever you got. And again, Apple, subscribe to the show. Spotify, subscribe to the show. We love you guys. We appreciate you being out there. All this stuff helps us to grow the show. And this is a big year. We are making a gigantic push. One thing before we go. So one of the ways I'm promoting the show is I am running pre-roll ads on other shows.
Wow. So you have to get permission to do that, though, right?
Well, no, I've got an advertising campaign where you choose the channels where it's going to show up. So, like, for example, if you go to NPR or The Ringer or Popcast or any of the other shows that are like ours, you're potentially going to see an ad for our podcast. Now, I always say skip ad, skip ad, skip ad. But I mean, this is another way that we're trying to, again, make a huge push.
It's great.
Yeah. So our guest today is an actor. He's a screenwriter. He's a director. He's a musician. He's probably best known for his role on the hit series One Tree Hill. He has also starred on shows like Unscripted, How to Make It in America, and The Mindy Project. On the big screen, he's done movies like Prime, Bride Wars, Friends with Benefits, and Vice. And his latest project is Junction, which he is the writer, star, and he makes his directorial debut. The movie will be out in theaters and on demand on January the 26th. Bryan Greenberg joins us. Bryan, congratulations on this movie, man. We really appreciate you coming on to talk about it.
I appreciate you watching it and getting the word out.
So this is such an ambitious movie, a look at the opioid crisis through the eyes of a pharmaceutical CEO, a doctor, an addict. Do you have a personal connection to the opioid crisis? Is this just telling a story for the greater good?
Both. I'm not an addict, but I had an encounter with, being prescribed opioids when I went in for like a routine surgery, and then I had a lot of trouble getting off of them. I got dope sick, and it just angered me that the system was put in place to make addicts out of people like me who aren't addicts. And, since then, I've lost friends and family, and, it's just, not family, sorry. I've lost friends, and I have so many family members who have been affected by it as well. It's just, it's everywhere. And I just wanted to, on this movie, I didn't have the luxury of time to explain to the audience how the opioid crisis happened, nor do I need to. I feel like there's enough information out there. I really just wanted to look at these three characters and kind of understand, I'm an actor primarily, so I'm interested in characters and why they do what they do. And I wanted to know why like good people seemingly do terrible things, and explore that gray area, that nuance, and so that's what inspired me.
So what was the process of you? This is your directorial debut, so congratulations.
Thank you.
How did that come about? That you got this unbelievable opportunity?
Well, I didn't get it. I made it.
Okay.
Nobody gave me this. I wrote it, and then I wanted to direct it because I've been an actor my whole life, and I was like, I really want to try directing. And I think I can do it on a smaller budget. And I think I can do it if I'm in a third of the film and an actor in it. And so it felt attainable, and it felt doable. So I just set that with my goal in mind, and I went out to a lot of people, and it was very hard to raise money for this. Then I found a foundation called the Sandguard Foundation. It was dedicated to fighting the opioid epidemic. They responded to the script. They wanted to get the word out there. And that really legitimized the project. And from there, we found, more money, and actors started coming on. Once it's like real, people come on board. But yeah, that's kind of how it was. Just like, I just told everybody I knew. I mean, I literally told like people at parties, like, I have the script. I want to make the script. And I found somebody who, I just kept putting it out there until it came back.
Talk about kind of the research of this project, because you're looking at it from multiple perspectives.
Yeah.
What sort of research did you go through to write the screenplay originally?
Yeah, interesting. Good question. I'm not an expert on this stuff. So I sought out experts. I just cold emailed like Barry Meyer, who wrote the book Painkillers. He writes for the New York Times. I would find like Wall Street journalists. I would just say, hey, I got your email. My name's Bryan Greenberg. I'm an actor. I'm writing the script. I'd love to ask you some questions. And you're the expert. Tell me what you know. Because I knew what story I wanted to tell, but I needed to understand the specifics, and I didn't want to get it wrong. So I just sought out the experts, which was a lot easier than me doing all the research myself. It's like cheating off someone's homework.
So are there any director buddies of yours? I mean, as an actor, I get the feeling that you're the kind of actor that throughout your career, you've probably taken a lot from everything you've worked on. You seem like the kind of guy that soaks up everything.
Yeah. Sure.
Were there people, mentors or other directors that you talked to about embarking on this project as a director?
Yeah, a lot of the directors that I worked with, in particular, Ben Younger, who did Prime. I did Prime with him, and he did Boiler Room and Bleed for This. He's fantastic. He was very helpful in this process. But my Julia DePietro, who did The Good Guy, Michael Marin, who did A Short History of Decay. I leaned on a lot of people, and I learned a lot. And I've worked with some great directors, and those guys included, and I've worked with some terrible ones too. And I wanted to learn from those experiences as well, and what not to do. So yeah, everybody, there was a lot of goodwill in making this movie, and I had no ego in shame in asking people, and I didn't pretend to know things I didn't know, and that's from the writing process or the directing process. Like if I didn't know how to set up a shot, I would defer to my DP, and there's nothing worse than like people like bolster, pretend just for their own ego that they're in charge. I mean, like, I don't care about being in charge. I want to tell a good story. So if you got a better idea that can beat this, by all means, like, that wins. The best idea wins.
It reminds me a little bit of Steven Soderbergh's Traffic. Has anybody mentioned that to you? That it's that intertwining story. And by the way, it's not a bad movie to be compared to at all, right?
Yeah, I would say that that was one of the inspirations for me. Michael Clayton was a big inspiration for me. The Insider was a big inspiration.
Yeah.
Good Time was the Safdie brothers movie.
That's right.
Right, Dog Afternoon. I mean, this movie has 3 different stories, and I wanted to do 3 different types of films within that all become one. So there's a different aesthetic for each story. So it draws from a lot. In Lawrence's story, he's the CEO of a pharmaceutical company. He's wealthy. So I wanted it to be very like grandiose, rolling dolly shots, that kind of thing.
He's an obnoxious golfer.
My God.
Yeah.
The worst.
I had thrown my hatred for golf into this film somehow. Sure.
Oh no, I'm insulted. I'm a golfer.
I also hate it, so I'm with you, Bryan.
I'm so bad at it, and I don't know. But I just wanted to throw that in there a little bit. I just thought it was hilarious. And then Mary's storyline, she's the doctor of a pain clinic, and hers is very like she's trapped. She's we didn't have the camera have a lot of movement with her. It was like she's on stilts, and then my storyline, I'm in the throes of addiction, and that was very handheld and raw. So all those kind of aesthetics sort of bleed into one aesthetic in the end, create one movie. But yeah, I drew from a lot of different films to get those aesthetics.
How did you get Griffin Dunne involved in this? And he ended up being an executive producer as well.
Yeah. So Griffin and I worked together on How to Make It in America. We just did a scene, and I always thought he was fantastic. Then we did like a 24-hour plays on Broadway, which is a charity event. And I just thought he's great. He's such a great actor. I've been a fan since After Hours, and I felt like he had the gravitas of this character. I just felt like he has that importance, and I think you would believe him in this role. Also, he's such like a nice guy. It was nice to see him play opposite of character. I'm a big fan of like casting. I think that actors aren't given enough opportunities to play different types of roles, so I like to see him in that. And I'm very fortunate that he said yes. A lot of actors in his caliber wouldn't work with a first-time director. I was very fortunate that he said yes.
So you are so good as an actor in this movie. And I think you've got the toughest role as a dad who, is trying to get his fix. Where does that performance come from? Like, did you talk to real addicts? You mentioned that you had a little trouble coming off one of your an opioid after a surgery. I mean, is that sort of where that comes from?
Yeah, I drew from that. So I understood the physicality of it. I definitely talked with addicts. I definitely did a lot of YouTube research. I remember like the biggest thing for me was I was going into a urgent care clinic, and like my wife had like a bee sting or something. I don't know what it was, something small, but there was a kid in there, like a young kid who was like 18, maybe 20, and he was jonesing. Like he was jonesing to get opioids, and he just needed he was sweating, and it was like I just was like transfixed by it. I'm like, and I was in the middle of already writing the project, and I'm like, you see that scene in the movie. I took that from real life. That stuck with me, just seeing this kid who it's not about getting high for these people. It's about not wanting to be sick. And I think we don't understand that, who look at addicts as victims or look at them as criminals. They're not criminals. They're trying not to feel sick anymore. And I think I wanted to destigmatize that.
Yeah, it's oh God, it's so tough. I actually dated a junkie when I was my first year of college. It was a high school boyfriend of mine, and I went away to college. I graduated early, so we were the same age, but I went to college first. And while I was in college, I found out that he started shooting heroin. I was like, oh my God. And I was already in deep. He was my boyfriend. I was madly in love with him. So I stayed with him, and we lived together. And I remember one time he came to me and he begged me to let him shoot dope. And I was like freaking out, and I was like, no. And you talk about the sickness. He said, I'm so sick and just let me do it this time. And I knew it wasn't going to be just that time, but I said yes, because he was just like struggling so much and he was in so much pain. So that was just, it was watching this. It was painful for me. It was so sad to me, but it was so real. It really was.
Yeah. Sorry to hear that. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's another reason I want to tell the story. It's just like everybody can kind of relate to this, I mean, it's one of those things that people at the time weren't really talking about. It's like we would hear about the opioid crisis and it was just like, oh, it's this, external thing that's happening, but I don't really know how to compartmentalize it or think about it. It's just like a thing that's going on, like this constant war that's happening. I just wanted to bring it home and make it real for people and try to understand, like, who are these people inside of this thing that we talk about that affects everybody.
And you say it affects everybody. There's a scene in the movie where your character Michael winds up in this crazy, I'll just call it a drug den, where a guy is a dealer, and I all I could think was, here's this middle class, upper middle class, regular guy who finds himself in this situation for a pill or for a couple of pills, and I thought this sickness, opioid addiction, is very democratic. It hits every economic status that there is, and it's rich and poor and everybody in between, right?
Doesn't care what political party you are, doesn't care what skin color you have, doesn't care how much money you have in your pocket. That's the thing about these drugs. It's like once they get in your system, they win. And these drug companies had incentivized so many people, like doctors and politicians, to make this acceptable, to create addicts out of all of us. And fortunately now there are things that are combating it, but this takes place in 2017, but now we're dealing with a whole other side of the crisis, which is fentanyl. And it's like once it went from like opioids to heroin to fentanyl, so it's pretty massive. But I think you got to start by talking about it. You got to start by like understanding, like there's systems in place that we can, like Narcan, we need to make that more accessible. And stop trying to criminalize these people as like criminals. They're not criminals. They're addicts. So they need help. We need to help them.
So how do you direct a scene that you're in? This is always, whenever somebody is directing themselves, I always wonder about this. Like there's one particular scene where Michael has left the house. He's looking for Oxy, and you're in profile, and it's a moving shot, and there's some really haunting music behind it, but it's really profile and on your face. How do you shoot a scene like that?
It's one of my favorite shots in the film. I'm glad you picked up on that. So as a director, I set up the shot with the DP. I have somebody else, I'm walking by them so I can see the camera and I can see what the shot will be. And then when it's my turn to step in front of the camera, I'm not a director now. I just have to trust that I've done the preparation. I have to trust that like my team, my DP, my producers, everybody knows, my other actors, they know what their jobs are. And I can just be in the moment and flow. And I can't be this like, I can't have to be watching myself, I have to be in it or it's not going to work. So really the answer is when you're acting in something that you've directed, you're not directing, you're acting. You have to. If you're doing a good job, you have to. So you just have to let it go.
I want to talk about one of your actors in particular. You have a great ensemble cast, and I think his name, I think I'm pronouncing it right, Dash Mihawk.
Dash Mihawk, yeah.
He's got a monologue towards the end of the film that kind of brings everything to, all the storylines come together. And I think one of the reasons it works so well is because of his performance. Talk about casting him and why that sequence is so effective.
Yeah. Well, Dash, I also worked with on How to Make It American. He's a fantastic actor. I think you could call him a character actor. He's been in so many different types of films, as She's just.
I remember a movie where he played Pete Rose.
Oh yeah, I didn't see that.
In an ESPN movie directed by Peter Bogdanovich. Weirdly, yeah, he played Pete Rose.
Wow. Yeah, like he's like Dash has been around. He's worked with some legends, and he's fantastic. And he's got this huge heart that always comes through on screen. And that particular monologue, that's my voice as a filmmaker. That's what I'm trying to say with this movie. Is he's embodying that. And I think what helps that scene is I shoot a lot of real people. I cut away. So I shoot a lot of real people looking at the camera. And it started, as a director, I started doing that on set. I would just take all the extras and have them look at the camera. And I would say, do you know anybody affected by the opioid crisis? Think about that person. What do you wish you could say to that person if they're still here? And just don't say anything, but just say it and think it with your eyes. And I would film that, and I would do that for everybody. And then I was like, I want to go to the streets and find real people. And I found people who were in the throes of addiction. And I would say, hey, I'm doing this movie. Can I film you? And then, we would film them and then, and get those reactions. And then, I was like, I don't want to be exploitive of addicts. This is not like, I'm not trying to, I feel like that was disingenuous of the film I'm trying to make a movie about that, of all the people that are affected by the crisis, not just addicts, but family members, counsel. So I went to New York and I filmed with a group that helps people get off the streets and provides counseling and for addiction. And so I filmed them, and I filmed like social workers, and I filmed their reactions, and I intercut all of that into the film, into this monologue, because I feel like I needed to really give these people in this crisis a face. Mm-hmm. And I hope that comes through. And it just makes the story land.
Yeah, it does. It was really, really powerful. How was it directing the actor who played your son? Like, was he completely understanding of what was going on with you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wesley, he's a brilliant actor. I wish I was that brilliant at that age for it. He's just a little acting machine. But he was doing Broadway, so he was very trained. His parents were very cool, and they were on set. And, we sat down and we talked about, we were just I was very honest with him. I think he was 10 or 11 at the time. And, but he was smart, and he understood what the story was and what we needed. I didn't pull punches with him. I was like, this is the type of movie we're making, and this is the relationship, the father son. Sometimes I'm going to be pretty mean to you, as an actor, like, as your father. I'm not, but I'm in the throes of something else. And he had the capacity to understand. He was very mature. So I talked to him like I would talk to you. I mean, he got, like, I didn't have to play like mind games with him. He was he really got it, and he understood exactly. I didn't have to do much with him. He was there,
So, honest question, and this is just open-ended. You've done so much research for this project. You've made this movie. Why has this country, the greatest country in the world, been so ineffective at dealing with the opioid crisis? How has it gotten so out of control? Is it just purely greed?
I think it started with that. Yeah, right. It starts with greed. Well, it's like with anything, there's not, and that's what I try to do with Junction. It's like, there's not one thing. It's just there's so many different factors that go into making a crisis a crisis. And there's so many different nuances and factors. But I think, one, greed for sure. And you see that, and I tried to show you that in this story of these drug companies and knowing what they're doing to these people and not caring, and then manipulating the system because they have so much money and power and everybody getting in line. So I think that's a big part of it. But two, I think it's the way we look at drugs. We've always, I personally think that, we had this fallacy in America that you can create a war on drugs. And I don't think it's ever worked in our favor, and it's always backfired. And I think it's just understanding that, like, and the lack of empathy for people who have these addictions, and we need to, like, put, be more sympathetic to that and take the criminalization out of drug addiction. think that's a big part of it. So I try to really show the humanity of what it's like to be in this film. But yeah, I don't know, man. I wish I had the answers. I ask more of the questions in this film.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's a good discussion. I mean, it prompts a discussion, which I think is the importance of the movie. But yeah, I guess nobody really. If we had the answers, we'd be doing something else altogether, right?
There are programs out there. I mean, making Narcan more available to people that should be over the counter everywhere. You know, same with fentanyl test strips. I mean, now the crisis has moved into fentanyl, as we're all aware of. And I think just like making there are treatments, and making those treatments like more accessible, like it, you know, getting the prescriptions to these drugs to get off of it should be easier. And giving government, you know, federal funding to these. And there's like right now they're trying to pass an act for like the fentanyl. Blanking on the name. Like Jelly Roll just did an amazing speech yesterday on Capitol. You guys should check it out. I put it on my Instagram story. You know, he's being an advocate for it. I mean, there are things that we can do as a country to get, and I think now that we're starting, and I think the first thing we got to do is just stop looking at people like they're criminals, and that you know, and this is their fault.
Yeah, yeah,
you know?
Right. And I also think the precarious thing is that, you know, I don't know. I mean, people come in, they're in pain, and not everybody is an addict. People do become addicts. Some people do, but some people don't. You know, I was sick. I was in the hospital. I was on a Dilaudid drip, and it was amazing. And I remember the nurse. I remember the nurse coming in the morning and saying, "We're taking this off of you. Get as much of it as you can before we take it away," because she knew what the feeling was. You know, I'm not an addict. I don't have an addict, you know, personality. But sometimes I think, you know, you're not everybody that walks into a doctor's office who is being prescribed something is going to be an addict. So I think, you know, in those cases, it's very tricky.
It's very tricky, and pain is relative. Like what pain is for you is not for me, you know, and we have different thresholds for that. And, you know, and in this film, like the doctor, like she has good intentions. Like, I don't think she doesn't want to see her patient suffer. She hates that. She's, you know, so she's doing the wrong thing for the right reasons.
Yeah.
You know, which is, I think, is interesting to watch.
So we wanted to talk about Junction. I wanted to ask you a couple of off-topic things, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So your first starring role was in a movie called Prime, and an actress named Meryl Streep plays your mom.
That?
Yeah, exactly. This is early in your career. Working with Meryl Streep, was it intimidating? What was it like to have Meryl Streep as a scene partner?
She couldn't have been nicer, couldn't have been more welcoming. Like, she would rehearse with me in my trailer, like was always available. We'd go out and have burgers and beers together, and she was just the greatest. Like, really took me under her wing and made me feel I felt so comfortable with her. And like, of course, I've always wanted to be an actor my whole life, so getting to work with Meryl Streep when I was like 26 years old was incredible. But she was so disarming, and I think she was aware of the her stature and like how people perceive her, and she's just so human and relatable. And I think that's why we all as audience members like her work, because we all kind of can escape into her humanity. But she was she was not off putting at all. She felt so welcoming, and yeah, it was pretty crazy to work with her at that age, and I learned a lot from her.
Go ahead,
Sue.
I wanted to actually talk to you about Unscripted, because I've worked in the unscripted world for a very long time as a producer. Started with the Osbournes and Newlyweds, where it was really pure reality. I want to know, I unfortunately, I couldn't get to see every episode, and I didn't see it when it first came out, but I found season 1, episode 1 last night.
Where did you find it?
It was on some bizarre site, and if I find it, I'll let you know.
This show was one of the coolest things I've ever worked on. It was an HBO show called Unscripted, that created by George Clooney and Grant Heslop and Steven Soderbergh. And we only did one season. It was about actors trying to make it in Hollywood. And it was like quasi-reality, quasi-scripted, and people didn't really know what was real, what wasn't real. And you can't find it. I don't know why HBO, I'd love for HBO to put this back on their website. If you're listening, HBO, can you just put Unscripted back on? It's one of the best things I've ever done. And you can't, it's just like in the ether somewhere. I have no idea where to find it.
It's crazy that it's not accessible. I have a friend that works at HBO, big time at HBO. So I'm going to call her and say, get it back on the air. But there's one scene, because when I started working in reality, people would say, was that real? Was that real? And, Osbourne's and Newlyweds, pretty much everything was real because it was early on before anybody tainted the genre. But right. There's a scene where you're with your friends and you're up for this part and they're helping you with your resume and they're telling you some things to put on your resume. Canadian passport, say that you worked on A Beautiful Mind 2, the sequel, that you're a juggler. I mean, just how much of that were you guys just riffing?
Oh, that whole show was improv. So look, this was Clooney baby, he wanted to do a love letter to Hollywood, but to his credit, he let me. I've never been involved with a project like this since. Those were my actual friends from NYU, actor buddies, and I was like, what would be good on this show? It's these would be my roommates, and we're all competing for auditions, and they're like, yeah, let's do that. And we did a scene, and they became series regulars on the show. It was it was great. And what we would do is we would structure out every episode of okay, Bryan gets an audition, his buddy tries to steal his audition, whatever. We would outline, we knew what scenes we were doing, but all the dialogue, we would just have 5 cameras going and we would just shoot. So it was very loose. And I was playing Bryan Greenberg, but I was playing this version of an actor who's falling upwards and always trying to make every situation super uncomfortable. So that was kind of my goal. But yeah, it was structured but improv.
Was the casting agent who you went in for that, I guess it was Santa Cruz, was he the real casting agent or was he an actor?
Yeah, remember that scene.
Okay.
I think it was a real casting director at the time.
Wow.
Because we had a lot of real people. Brad Pitt was in it. Meryl Streep was in it. We incorporated me getting Prime into that. That was a crazy story in of itself. So yeah, there was a lot of real stuff, but we would create fake stories. Like when I was shooting Prime, we created this fake story. I was partying with my buddies all night, getting drunk, and then we filmed. And then I got called into work and I had to film. So I wasn't drunk. I didn't go out the night before, but I pretended. So we shoot the scene for Prime and then they'd yell cut. And then I would pretend to be hungover, oh my God. And it's crazy. So it was weird. I'm doing 2 things at once. It was the weirdest, most exciting time in my career. Actually, until Junction, probably, with so much going on. Because Junction, with writing and directing and producing, I felt the same thrill I had then. Because it was just so many things happening at once. It was incredible.
Well, listen, this has been great. The movie is great. It is beautiful, complex storytelling, terrific ensemble cast, and really does serve as an opening to a conversation about the opioid crisis and what's hitting in America right now.
You said it so perfectly. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to have the conversation. I'm not here to provide the answers. I'm here to ask the questions. I want us to have these conversations. So thank you for it. I'm so happy that that's what you got from it. Appreciate it.
And everybody can see Junction opening January the 26th. Recommend you do it. It's a great film. Bryan, thanks so much for coming on, man. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And there you have it. There's Bryan Greenberg. It is a really, really interesting movie. I love the fact that he said it really doesn't have answers, but it does prompt a discussion and it shows it from 3 different perspectives. And I love the way the stories intertwine. It really does feel a lot like the movie Traffic. And actually, after the interview, that scene in the drug den, I thought it's like Alfred Molina in Boogie Nights. He said that was absolutely a reference that he was looking for, but it does have that vibe to it, I think.
Yeah, people who these drug companies, they should be forced to sit and watch this movie.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah,
everybody should watch this movie. Yeah. Everybody
yeah.
should see it.
But these guys definitely, of course, everybody should see it. It's a very important film.
But again, sit it in front of those greedy assholes and show them what they're doing to the world.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but he's great. He's adorable. He's a great actor, and I actually saw a little bit of How to Make It in America too.
Did you?
That Mark Wahlberg series.
No, nice.
That
nice.
Kind of like they compared it a little bit to Entourage, but he's great. He's just a terrific actor.
Yeah,
and
he is.
Actually, one of his songs that he did in Unscripted made it into the show.
Oh, really?
He's a great singer-songwriter.
Well, he's released 4 albums. I mean, we only had 30 minutes, so I couldn't get to everything, but he's released 4 albums, most recently in 2019.
I know, and he toured. I was reading about him. He toured with Gavin DeGraw and a couple of artists.
A couple others, yeah, but he's actually been out on tour. He's got to be great.
He's really good. Yeah, he's a very talented guy.
Very cool. Thanks to Bryan Greenberg. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. Sue, it's great seeing you. And we will see everybody next time on the Culture Pop Podcast.